Now, here's all the things you'll actually need to make this gumbo. This is my family recipe. I'm not that brilliant or a culinary scientist. You'll see by my chopping, I'm not that talented either. But this is my family's recipe, and I hope you like it. Of course, first is the prep. So let's start with the andouille, chop it up into half moons, 1 pound worth. Then we move into the bell pepper, onion, fresh parsley, celery after your dad went to the store for the 3rd time today to pick it up, and then blanch the tomato, which I'm doing here, showing how you blanch a tomato because I didn't know. And then you cut that up into quarters. Then we gotta take our anger out on the chicken. This is unnecessary, by the way, just felt like doing it. And cutting it up into little edible cubes. Now it's time to make our own Creole seasoning. We're gonna start with 1 tablespoon parsley flakes, 1 teaspoon thyme, 1 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon dried basil, 1 teaspoon paprika, 1/2 teaspoon black pepper, 3/4 teaspoon cayenne, and finally 1/4 teaspoon white pepper for that extra kick. Now let's get into the actual meat of the gumbo. We'll start off by browning the sausage in a large pot. You'll also want to make sure that you get any cat hair out of your pot before you even start. But we'll be using this to make the fond and the oil for additional flavors in the roux. In a separate pan, we will just brown the chicken but not cook all the way through. We'll do that in a later step. We brown the sausage and the chicken for extra flavor. Once the sausage is nicely browned, we'll remove and set aside from the pot. Same with the chicken. In the pot we use to brown the sausage, we'll put about 1/4 cup of oil on medium-high heat to start the roux. Making the brown roux for gumbo has never been an exact science for me, but I felt like it's always started about with 1/4 cup of veggie oil and a little over 1/2 a cup of regular all-purpose flour. Once combined, the mixture will start to out dough-like, but as you can see here, I realized it just wasn't enough oil for my flour, so I put in a little bit more to make it less doughy. After several minutes of constantly stirring and your back's hurting, it should start to turn darker but become more liquidy. We'll keep stirring till the roux becomes about a tad bit darker than peanut butter as I'm showing here. At this point, we'll add the holy trinity of Creole foods, onions, bell peppers, and of course celery, once the onions are cooked about half translucent. After the trinity continues to cook for about 3 to 4 more minutes, we'll add back in the sausage. As you can see here, the roux does continue to darken even after we add the veggies and the sausage. Once the roux reaches the color of about a cocoa powder, we are ready to proceed to the next step. Here we'll add 4 crushed cloves, 3 crushed bay leaves, and our Creole seasoning. Immediately, we'll add about 2 cups of hot chicken stock and 1/2 cup at a time so we don't break the roux. I then switched to adding boiling water to the rest of the pot to add volume without too much salt. The amount of chicken stock and water all depends on how thick you like your gumbo. Now we'll let the flavors get to know each other and let this simmer for about 40 minutes with the lid off. While that's simmering, and hopefully your rice is cooking, we'll degouify the okra in a separate pan. I'm using about 2 cups worth, but you want to make sure first that your pan is heavily coated, and you'll want to add the okra. But you want to make sure that they're all touching the pan face down, but that you aren't moving them too much. The technique I was taught was to cook them down and to not touch them. This lets the, I can't think of a better word than slime, strings of the okra burn off or stick to the pan instead of itself. So if you move them too much, it'll just stick back onto the okra. Once they're not stringy, when you move them around, you'll want to remove them from the pan and add them to the gumbo pot. After about 30 minutes of simmering, you'll want to add in the peeled and quartered tomato. The tomato adds a nice acidity to the stew, and the full depth of flavor. And if you're adding shrimp, you'll want to do that now. Once the shrimp cooks for about 15 minutes, you're finally done with this masterpiece of a headache. Be sure to serve over white rice and with French bread and a vinegary hot sauce of your choice. This dish truly is worth all the effort to make, but there's a reason why I only make it every 3 months. Hot tip of the day, gumbo only gets better with age. Obviously to a point. I hope I didn't have to explain that to you, but the gumbo just gets better. The flavors start to really absorb into the roux, into the dish itself, and they really start to come out, and it tastes amazing the second day. So I highly recommend making leftovers. Thanks for watching, and come back for more content. God, I hate voiceovers. How do people do this?